Welcome to the fourth episode of You're Where You Need to Be. Today's topic is something what really interests us. At least it was a topic between us this week, and we wanted to discuss it through the podcast as well. It is unlearning the patriarchal relationship model and embracing singlehood, basically.
Yay.
Yeah. And actually, I don't even remember how this came up exactly between us, but I know that I started to wonder this week that I actually am at that part of my life where I can confidently say that I really enjoy being alone, being on my own. And it is this period of my life where I don't even crave that much social interaction either. So I just like to be in my own company. But somehow it still lingers in my mind that one day I would have to find somebody, because that is how it's going to be happy ending. And I think, this was where we started to discuss that for some reason, this patriarchic system was the one lying to us that this is our only happy ending, which is possible, that you have the husband, you have the kids, you have the house, if you remember.
Yeah, I do remember. And it's a really hard thing to grow yourself out of. And I don't think you can do this like just by telling yourself. You have to experience certain things in life to arrive to this point, because I before never really imagined. I had this mentality in my mind, but I always craved and I felt this pressure that I want to have a boyfriend. And now the pressure is actually a wish, like for a future, but it doesn't feel as desperate as it used to. And it probably comes from like a lot of healing of wounds that was triggering that craving. I think that's what is happening there based on my own experience. So it's not an easy thing to do. And a lot of people have really deep wounds around being alone, not belonging to anywhere, feeling scared that they can't do life on their own. They lack self-esteem and so on. And because of these wounds, we crave so heavily to have someone who will do those things for us. And unless we heal them and we are confident that we are able to live our lives on our own and we don't need someone to fulfill us in that way, then if we don't arrive to that point, we are not gonna feel easy about, I don't care much whether I'm gonna have a date next week or next month or the next half year. And you just feel like living your life. And I didn't think either that I will ever get to this point, but I am as well the same place where you are. And it feels really good actually, because I can focus on myself, which is awesome. And on my friends as well.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly good and odd feeling as well, because for me, since I was 15, I basically have always been in a relationship. I was going from relationship to relationship with no or little time in between the two. No, meaning that I already knew who I wanna be together next when that relationship ended, which I've been in. And that is so unhealthy if you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Basically, all our teenage years and our 20s were based on finding the next boyfriend.
Yeah.
And actually, you don't even realize or work on your own identity consciously or what would you like to do, because you're always with somebody else. And I'm not saying that if you are with somebody else, you cannot do these things, but it's not the same.
It's not.
It's not the same when you are really on your own. And when you are getting to the point of being really, really okay with it. And I couldn't imagine this in the past.
Yeah, I know. Even those healing lessons and workouts, let's call them workouts, I would do. So then I will be able to find easier my healthy future partner and things like that. And right now I'm like, I'm glad that I did them, because now I don't feel the craving to go out on stupid dates because like I'm looking forward to meet someone, obviously, because ideally I would love to share my life experience with someone. But alternatively, I also picture myself growing old with Dachshund, sausage dog, and which one is that cat that has no hair?
The Sphinx.
Yeah, the Sphinx.
I love them too.
And
They're
they
cute.
gonna be best buddies. And who else? What kind of other, like chicken? Yes, chicken, so I can have plenty of eggs. So yeah, but who knows? So like at this point, I'm just like, I want to enjoy life. And if someone comes along who has a similar mentality as mine, and we can enjoy it together, challenge each other, get some triggers as well that I can work on. That's awesome. I would love that too. Yeah, it's a really good uplifting feeling and it's a relief. But I do remember, as long as I can remember back, I was very little, even in kindergarten, everything was about boys, and I do wonder where does this come from? Like from movies, from conditioning, or everyone would. Yes, I do remember, even as a little girl, like relatives would ask, oh, do you have a boyfriend? Or who are you going to get married? And then stupidly, at that time I would say my dad or my brother, and then, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, then who? So I kind of had to choose someone. And then from that moment, I was thinking about it. But before that, no one really pointed out that it doesn't have to be. I remember I was so obsessed with, I want to get married at 20 and have babies so soon and whatever. But then that's not me. Like, that wasn't me. I didn't even know who I am and what I want, actually. So, and I'm happy that it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's because basically you are asked earlier if you have a boyfriend before they would ask what exactly would you like to be or how do you picture your adult life individually. Yeah. Like, what are your goals? What would you like to do with yourself? Okay, they ask about career when you are 18. You still most of the time have no idea what you want, but they are asking about that. But basically the lifestyles which our parents lived and of course grandparents who actually had to really lean on each other for survival as well, they were conditioned to think like this. And little girls were also conditioned that our lives has to have a man no matter what, because that's the most important part. Find the right or not right, whatever. Find a man, whoever. A man. somebody with a dick, Just to start a relationship. Then from the relationship, get engaged. From there, get married. And after that, start to have kids as soon as possible. Yeah. And if you rather said that maybe this is not something what you would like to pursue, or you look at other women who actually lived single lifestyle, they somehow are still pitied till this day. Mm-hmm. Like what you said about the dogs, the chickens, the farmhouse, it would look like something what's pathetic and lonely, but why? Why is it lonelier than being in the wrong relationship or the wrong marriage where you are actually tied together with a person if you have kids? Yeah. I've seen so many bad examples, so many. Yeah. And I just knew that I don't want that. And maybe that. From when? What age? What I knew, and I've known for a long, long time. I cannot even say what age, but I looked at my parents getting divorced. I looked at my parents getting together with people who were not the perfect fit for them. And I looked at my grandparents not being happy with each other. I just said that I never want to end up like this, no matter what. I don't want to be growing old and be unhappy. I don't want to have kids with somebody who will cheat on me or leave me for somebody. I think that's when my avoidant attachment started to bloom because I felt that I need some sort of independence. That's why I think, left relationships which were actually, there was not really much issues with them. I just always found some issues, and I was afraid that it's going to be something which eventually will end it and end up there. And I also always felt like I really want to be alone. Yeah. I felt it I told myself, and yet I jumped into another relationship. And since a year or two, I haven't pursued anything. I had a relationship, this on and off, the last one I would say, which was toxic. But when we were off, I really didn't care. And I already had this mindset that I just really don't want anything.
Oh, that's good. Somewhere you had this view from a long time, I think, because even though you did go and pursue and fall into relationships, but you didn't definitely do it out of the expectations of other people, because a lot of people, I think, they just go and I kind of felt like there is something wrong with me if someone didn't want to date with me. And that's not other people's expectation. It's unhealed wound. But this is what you also hear from everywhere. Like, I also heard it from a former friend of mine. It's like, I don't even recall exactly how she phrased it, but what is wrong with what's happening? What is wrong with you that no relationship is working out? And that's not the exact way she phrased it, but the meaning of it was like that. And like, at that time, I didn't understand, but people still feel like it's wrong if you're not in a relationship, if things don't work out. And they don't even actually see that it has a very, very solid reason, because you yourself haven't healed so many wounds that you're bringing from your upbringing and from your background and generational trauma as well. The mentality that I'm thinking maybe that trauma, generational trauma is kind of burnt into your DNA in that sense.
That's for sure.
Then I'm wondering if the mentality that our ancestors have been practicing their entire lives and never ever questioned it. I wonder if that as well is burning into their DNAs, like the neuropaths and everything. I was just questioning myself whether that's the case as well, because why is it so hard to outgrow these kind of mentalities that you grew up in? And I was just wondering if something that happened to them repeatedly in a bad way, that's ingrained in the DNA, then what would it make any difference the way they live their life? That's also repeatedly the same thing. I was just wondering.
Yeah,
what do you think?
But the thing is that if you have grown up with an idea which they were repeating to you over and over again, and it is passing from generation to generation, and even if you feel like it's not really applying to you, you subconsciously, I would say, still try to adjust to that idea so you make others happy around you. Or I don't really know what else to say about that, because I don't understand myself today why I always needed to chase a relationship. Like, what was the reason? Especially that after some time, as I said, I always felt that I crave to be by myself because I need to experience that. And you see, after all, life gives you what you're asking for. And I'm not saying that it is easy or it was always easy, because I felt the loneliness in the beginning.
Yeah.
Had to force and recondition my way of thinking about spending time in my own company, because I was either surrounded by family, friends, or boyfriend all the time. I never really had to sit with myself for that long. So it was uncomfortable, but I got used to it. And now I don't understand what was I so afraid of. It's a wonderful thing, really.
Yeah.
And I know that certain things, for example, relational wounds, can only be 100% healed if you are practicing them in another relationship. But you can heal yourself so much in your own company, because you just kind of nurture yourself. You're feeling safe. You feel like that everything's going to be fine because you already proved yourself that you can make it by yourself.
Yeah.
So you're taking care of yourself, basically. And it was kind of hard to imagine for our generations before us.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially because thanks to patriarchal thinking, that's what they teach women, is that women can do only certain things and you need to rely on to the man to do the rest.
Yeah.
Even
It revolves
if
around, basically.
even if in reality, majority of men actually never even did that what they were supposed to in the relationship, and the women had to do all the labor in the end still. So they would just go to work, earn the money, go home and be served, and that's it, and get their needs met. And this is a huge generational trauma that's been passed down to recent generations, that boys were growing up seeing that their dad was never doing anything at home,
Never
and now
lifting a finger.
they are looking for mummies literally to serve them, to be always at hand and cook and iron their clothes and clean after them and so on.
And
be
they
always
find less
happy.
and
Yeah, I hope so.
Now, I'm really thinking, if you are looking around in any social media platforms, that's the content what is coming up most of the time. That more and more women are not satisfied with these kind of roles anymore, and they want an equal partner. They don't want to be mummies and shrinks and everything all together for one guy who is actually just working, coming home, and then basically not even engaging with them on any meaningful way. And I'm not saying all of the past marriages and relationships look like that. Absolutely not. But the majority.
Yeah, I know. I saw plenty of those. And the funny part is, even though this is a really unhealthy dynamic, it's still good in a way that it made us go and chase relationships and other wounds as well, because since we didn't come with the healthy package from home, knowing everything how it should be the best, healthiest for ourselves, with whatever we brought, we had to go through those seekings and hunting for relationship, because this is how we experienced what we don't want. And finally we say, we don't want that. Thank you. No, I'd rather be alone in my own peace than having to, listen to someone how I should change myself to their liking, or how I should be doing things differently, or even worse.
But at least that's the difference, that we are questioning these things, and we didn't want to fit into the traditional roles, so to say.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we don't desire a strong prioritization and a deep emotional connection, and of course sexual exclusivity. So a relationship, it just means that we want somebody who is equal with us, who is going to put exactly the same effort as we do, who will take care of us just like how we take care of them. So we don't just give, we also get. And I think it's a powerful realization that we finally came to the conclusion after so many failed relationships. Because it's true that you need to go out there and you need to experience. But so many people don't question negative models of relationships. They just stay in them, or they were not even taught how to question it, basically. And that's why still so many people are living in toxic marriages and relationships, which is so sad if you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I also had to have really painful experience in relationship to finally start to question these things, because otherwise it's just a mellow, uncomfortable feeling. It's just, oh yeah, again, I broke up. I'm reflecting what I did wrong and so on. But also the lack of knowledge about how a healthy relationship should work is, I had ideas and so on, and I thought I'm so certain about them. And as soon as I met someone who triggered the deepest wounds in me, all of it went down the toilet, because no one taught me how to heal those wounds. And as long as we don't heal those wounds and we don't learn and set up a new mentality, a new way of living than we used to, then you will just keep falling into the same trap. And it has to become so unbearable, in my case at least. And I don't know what else it needs for other people. But for me, it needed the pain that I said that's it. done. And luckily, I draw in all the good lessons from life and other people and coaches that helped me show the path. And I also became open to it because I was wondering how we could teach a healthier standards to the newer generations, because this is not something you can just teach at school. But maybe with awareness, if you keep spreading this knowledge, at some point, sooner or later, majority of the people hopefully will be open to it because they go through their own experiences and they will crave that kind of knowledge to consume. Or also that because all of this information is quite new and this development is really new. Like it's, I don't know, a few years of happening that we are starting to look into our own behavior, the psychological reasons, attachment styles, or so on. So it still hasn't arrived to a lot of people. And that's why I think we still see a lot of patriarchal mentality, because it's just all brand new, shiny.
But do you feel also there is like a transformation happening where more and more people are starting to experiment with different type of relationships?
Yeah.
I mean, the very famous polyamory relationships or the ethical non-monogamous relationships. Is this, in your opinion, a way of liberating themselves and experimenting? Or can this be literally just another way to look at relationships? Because as for me, I cannot imagine it. I couldn't live in something like this because I'm really focused on one person. And that's the reason why it came up in my mind, if it's really internalized patriarchy still, or it is really me. But the thing is that I cannot change the way I love. So it's got stuck with me. It is what it is. But what do you think?
I'm the same in this matter. I just can't focus on someone else, and I don't find interest in other people, because as soon as I find someone else interesting for me, romantically or sexually, to me that means that there is something major issue in my relationship and I'm trying to find a way out. And I never act out on it, but that's a huge sign. And I heard this from other people as well. And I think it's just evolutionary. There are people who are more monogamous mentality, because probably for women it would be safer to stick to one man. And for men, I think that's why it has always been the way that they like to go and explore and have different sexual partners, even if their partner doesn't know about it. But it's because that's like survival thing, that spread the genes as much as you can, but it's not for all men. So even men are different. So it's just different types. But I do believe that this is also a product of a very, very, very upcoming avoidance being present, because it's a very good way for people to keep distance and not commit. And this is my opinion. This is how I think and feel. So anyone thinks otherwise, I completely accept that. But I think a lot of people, I'm not saying all, because I do believe that it's possible to live with multiple partners in an ethical way. I do not support cheating and infidelity in any ways, because I think that's just unhealed trauma response. And I do support healing all of your wounds and find your way to resolve conflict. Or if you cannot do that with that person, then move on. Leave that person. Even if you have children, it's much better for the child and so on. But I think a lot of people think it's good for them and they do it, but they don't realize that they are suppressing major emotions, feelings, wounds that they are not even aware about. And because of that, because they are not aware, they don't notice how this is affecting them, and they are completely disconnected from themselves. And this way they can have sex with multiple people on and on and on again without having to put any effort into building a relationship, a proper relationship. And also the fear of commitment, relying on one single person to be in a monogamous relationship. With this way, they can rely on different people meeting their own needs. And I don't think it's unhealthy in every cases, but I do believe that a lot of people are making this because they think it's a good way to explore, but they're doing it out of wound triggers and they don't even realize.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying, especially that one story just came to my mind, what I read today. I cannot really recall every detail, but it was written there that sometimes these people are just so afraid to be left or to be alone, then that's why they are seeking multiple partners, because even if one leaves them, there will be still plenty of others and they don't have to feel abandoned. And that's why maybe they are supporting this type of idea, or they are more comfortable with being in this setup. And it was also written there that that's why you shouldn't judge people, because you never know what's their background. Okay, but shouldn't we work on healing the wounds from our background so we are actually not escaping all the time from something?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's like if I have seen so many people with avoidant attachment style, and as soon as they got aware that they are avoidant and they know the reasons why they behave the way they behave, they started to, instead of really truly healing and changing their dynamics, they were just using this as an excuse to justify their behavior and keep saying, this is who I am, you should be the one who is changing or adjusting to myself. Or it's something like saying that I used to actually didn't realize how alone I felt, because since my childhood, that was my normal. I was left alone a lot. I was on my own a lot. I didn't really have a lot of friends when I was very little. And it just became the normal that I had to solve everything on my own. And just because of recent life experiences, I realized that I feel alone. And when I first said this out loud, it hit me so hard because, oh my God, this is why I didn't realize it. And I thought I used to be so proud and I didn't understand why people would say, I feel so lonely, or I don't want to be alone, or something like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I am so fine on my own, I love to be on my own. And then, but on the other side, I was seeking constantly relationships. So that was something there that was telling that I was not okay on my own. And it's the same thing that if you don't notice that something is hurting you and you just keep embracing it, you keep doing it, it's still gonna keep hurting you until to the point where it's gonna be so bad, like my recent experience, that it's like, oh my God, what have I been doing? Why am I telling myself that? And it's not my fault. I couldn't help it. I had to go through shit to finally recognize this, because it's been like the fish, I've been swimming in the water. I don't notice I'm swimming in that water, because it's part of my life. So yeah, that's how I feel. A lot of people are doing this as well, that they just keep saying, oh yeah, it's good. I love it. But then they don't actually realize where it hurts them so much. But I hope one day they will.
Yeah, and this is really a positive message, because basically what I also wanted to add, that we are not talking here to judge anybody who are not there yet, or are still on their journey, or they still don't recognize their patterns and they are still in denial, or they think that they are actually consciously doing something which they don't, because we all did it, and we can actually still fall back into those patterns with less likelihood, but it can still happen if we face another challenge which we never faced before, because who knows how we are going to work it through.
Yeah.
So basically it's all a journey, and that's what matters the most. But the important thing is to recognize, because we always feel if we are not comfortable in a certain situation or with a certain person, if we are in a toxic dynamic. And even though we have attachment issues, and that's why it's harder to let people go, or that's why we are trying to explain that attachment is love, which is not really. It can feel the same way. But if you are constantly feeling bad next to somebody and you're still trying to explain that love has to hurt because that's real love, and then you have to realize that no, love doesn't need to hurt. Love has to heal. Love has to support. Love is a positive emotion. I'm not saying there shouldn't be conflicts between two people, which can hurt from time to time, but there is a difference between this and the completely toxic dynamic where you just feel miserable. And we all had it. You had it. I had it, where it was so painful at the end that we really just had to deep dive into what the fuck we've been doing and why. Because of course, first you always are resentful towards the other person and you kind of feel hate towards them because you project your own emotions about yourself on them. But at the end, you are just really angry with yourself. Why did you let this happen with you? So this is basically what we are always trying to encourage everybody to do. Just to think through if you are really satisfied with where you are and who you are with. And if you're not, just don't be afraid to it.
That's interesting what you just mentioned, that you would be projecting your anger, your frustration onto the other person at first and then after blame yourself. I kind of have a roller coaster with that. I used to many years ago. I would do that, but then eventually I would realize that it's not their fault, and it's not also realize it's a trauma response because I'm trained to be a people pleaser, and then I would accept all of the blame, and even those that weren't said out loud, I would tell myself that this happened because of me and I have to change. I have to do things differently. And this kept happening. And because of that, because I kept telling that to myself, I kept finding the wrong partners in wrong. They were not wrong. They
for
just
you.
Not compatible.
Yeah.
Because I kept not looking at what is it that I deserve? What is it that I need? What is a healthy relationship? And that comes from also patriarchal thinking, I do believe, because I think society and this kind of mentality ingrained in us that there is no free will. It's like there is a pattern that you have to follow like everyone else have to. And women has to accept whatever comes and deal with that. And for many years, it didn't even occur to me, like properly in my nerves and everywhere, that I can have a healthy partner who will treat me the same way I treat them. I always overgave. I overgave because they will love me once they see how great I am and so on. And I do believe that's also coming from that kind of mentality, because that's what I saw in my family happening all the time. And where is that coming from? Probably patriarchal mentality. And to imagine that I could go out and I do deserve, and I could actually find an awesome, handsome, funny, great guy who is intellectual, emotionally available, number one.
Yeah.
And he will be also interested in me, and I would want that person, not need. I would want that person, and it could work out, because what I have seen in my history was we fall into each other's paths. As you once said, it's like the wind blows them together, and then they actually get attached, which I also didn't know for many years. That's different than love, because all Hollywood movies, everyone is talking about love for first sight, or how do you say that properly? And then you just make it work. But they did not make it work, They just suck down so much shit from the other person, and their needs don't get met, and they just literally survive together. They don't thrive. And with this kind of example, you just go and find a half-dead frog on the side of a murky lake, and then, this is my princess. This is gonna turn into my princess once I kiss it. A prince. Sorry.
It's a princess.
Sorry,
Whichever.
no judgment. It could be a princess.
You can be a princess too, it's no problem. I always wanted to be a frog, okay? Frog.
Who knows where we're gonna get there from here. And then, and then I would be kissing that frog and get so disappointed that it doesn't turn into my prince or princess, and just keep squeezing that frog. Why are you not the thing that I wanted you to be? And that's not how it should be. And this is what they teach us, to go out and teach that man how they have to treat you. And that's not how it is. People behave the way they behave, and you can't not do anything to change that. You can tell either you are okay with that or you are not okay with that. Or is this person able to compromise and grow with you or not? And majority of the cases, they are not. You need to find the closest option possible, which sounds so scary. And I don't know how many times I heard, oh, but this way you're never going to find a man.
Yeah, because they can interpret it in a way that you have so high standards and you need them to meet so many criteria that person doesn't even exist. But it's not really about that. We just realize that real love has to go slow.
Yeah.
So whatever is this crazy attachment in the beginning with somebody, it's never coming from a good place, or very rarely coming from a good place. If I'm sure there are examples where it turned into a happy ending, because there are so many people on earth and so many stories. So we're just talking about what we experienced and what we see around us. But most of the time, for you to really get to know somebody, the best way is just to give it time to see them in different situations, how they are reacting, what are they doing, can you count on them, can they count on you, can you work together well, do you understand each other, can you communicate with each other effectively, and so on and so on. Because that's what can turn into a long-term thing, I think, at the end, when you give it time, when you're not rushing it. Because if you rush into something, as you said, you will have expectations which the other person cannot live up to, because you don't even know them and you already built something up in your head, which is just not them. And it's not their fault. It was there in the beginning, and if you didn't rush into it, that you would have seen it more clearly.
Yeah. But also being able to know what is it that you really need, because
that's long
another
journey.
thing. Like, it's so complex. The whole thing is to realize and also truly know it. Because as I mentioned earlier, I used to think that I know, and I'm reading back my diaries and so on, and I just keep questioning myself at that time, like, surely this is not how it should be. Like, I would expect that, and then why is this person not doing that? And then if you don't heal your wounds and you don't learn new ways of looking at relationships, you're gonna be so lost. And also, if you don't know yourself, because apparently I didn't know myself, what a surprise.
Many of us
for many years, then you are just blindly trying to grab something that will give you some
short-term satisfaction or
satisfaction, but also ego boost. It's all of these are like that will prove that whatever you're going through is how it should be or it shouldn't be. So you're like beggingly asking everyone, what am I supposed to do? Because you don't know yourself. You don't know your own standards. You don't know how a healthy relationship should look like. I, for example, did not recognize how it looks like when someone mistreats me, because that was my norm in my entire life. And my brain got so conditioned to overlook that and then justify. They are just overwhelmed. They are tired. They didn't mean it, And because of that, you were not allowed to say that this is not okay. I'm not okay with this, so I'm going to walk away. You had to live with this. So your brain became blind to it. And, if you don't know what bad treatment looks like, you're just going to keep going and your body is going to keep talking like this is not how it should be, but you still try to make it work and don't see that it does not work clearly. So all of this knowledge and feeling it actually and knowing it, because I knew it somewhere surface level, I knew it, but it didn't sink into my body that, hey, yes, this person might have some nice qualities, but overall, let's say 90% of the time, he treats me really, really, really badly. And that's what I should be focusing on.
Stuck into those few moments where they were the person you would want them to be. But let's face it, most of the time they are not. And exactly, we were conditioned for this in some families, unfortunately, to accept mistreatment, to always rationalize it, but not for ourselves, but for the other person, because they had a bad day. We have to be the one understanding, and I'm still getting this deal these days that I have to be the one more understanding. I have to be the bigger person. I have to be the one who helps, and I have to be the one who doesn't expect anything in return because I'm a good person. What the fuck? Just because I'm a good person, I doesn't have to be a fucking doormat.
Yeah.
Or am I?
That comes from what? Patriarchy.
Yeah, that
So
women
how can
have
we
to be
heal
like
it?
this. Women have to be like that.
Yeah.
Women have to be understanding. Women have to be stronger because men are weaker. So we have to be there to support them. And please don't misunderstand. We are not talking against men. We love nice, healthy, intelligent men. God bless you if I believed in it. But really, we are not talking here against genders. We are talking about individuals.
People.
We experienced things with because they were not healthy and we were not healthy. And that's all. And that's what we are trying to get out ourselves from, because nobody should live like this. For example, I was rewatching actually a series. I think it's called Big Little Lies. And there is Reese Witherspoon, Nicole Kidman, and I don't know who else is starring in it, but I really like those actresses. So I remembered I watched it in the past, but I couldn't really recall much from it, only that when I watched it, I didn't understand one of the main protagonist character, why she missed her abusive husband after he died. I was just amazed to watch it again, and I still could learn from it, and I understood how much I grew with time, that I understand this now from a different perspective, and I don't say that this is a completely insane woman, what is she doing? She should be relieved. Trauma is so complex from this type of relationships that it's not easy.
Trauma bond is very, very powerful, and unless you experience it yourself, it's very hard to imagine how is it. Like, it doesn't sound logical, but trauma is not logical.
Absolutely. It's not something you can explain to someone who never had it, never experienced it. They will think that you are crazy.
Yeah, that's why they used to think that veterans are crazy. Like, what the hell is going on with you? Like, you're done with the war. Why are you acting like that, from some fireworks? Oh my God, poor people.
Yeah, that is one of the extreme examples. But if you think about it like globally for other type of issues, it's true for everything. That's why people in general don't understand each other. That's why there are so many connections which are getting lost, because something happens with one and the other just cannot be there to support because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
And from their perspective, it's not that big of a deal because they are not inside. Because if you are inside, it looks completely different.
Yeah. And not everyone is being blessed or cursed with very strong empathy skills, but they are also giving other people lessons, and maybe eventually they grow more empathy or understand this later on in their lives. Who knows? We may never know. But yeah, it's very interesting how this works. They just cannot put themselves into the other person's shoes.
Yeah, but that's why communication from both sides, whatever relationship or friendship we are talking about, it's so important. Because if you have a basic understanding towards the other person, a basic empathy, and a trust in them for one way, that they are not saying things to hurt you, then many things can be solved and communicated, in my opinion. Maybe I said this before, I don't know. But I really believe in that, especially how I see we communicate with each other. We are also not perfect. Neither you or me. We have worse days, better days. We can have misunderstandings, but we're not attacking each other for those misunderstandings. We are trying to understand where the other person is coming from at that moment and what could they feel, and then just talk it through.
Yeah. And I really love that, by the way. So thank you.
I appreciate it so much, especially because I lost friendships before for exactly this reason, that it was always coming from a perspective of anger, of resentment, of projections. And if you don't do that, you can have actually a lot of quality relationships.
Yeah. But it must be, by the way, really hard for those people as well, just to give them some credit, even though they caused us uncomfortable feelings or pain or anything. But I do remember those years of my life when I would very similarly behave, unfortunately, towards other people, but then eventually it would trigger me in such shame that why did I behave like that? I would not never admit to those people, or I didn't even have the chance, or maybe many years later when they didn't even care about it, or they got upset. Why am I bringing this up and so on? But I do now know why that happened. It's like majority of children don't get any empathy from their parents. They get criticized, judged, mocked, and so on, so-called joked, about things. And they never really feel that when they feel low, they feel there's something wrong or they have bad days or anything, that they really get any empathy. And they just never learn how to give empathy back. And I do remember for some reason, I was very, very, very empathic towards films, fictional movies and fictional stories and so on. Or maybe certain cases, other people. I would cry if something happened to someone I really care about. But other things that I never received empathy about before, I could not give back to other people. I had to learn it over time. And a lot of people probably don't even think about it, or it's so painful because it's very vulnerable. You have to admit to yourself as well that you were wrong. Why are you behaving like that? And I still, till today, I find myself sometimes in certain cases that I don't feel empathy, or I start to judge someone or compare them to something because in a certain situation or something. But now I know that it's actually triggering some unhealed wound inside me. And I have to look into that, how to heal that, how to work on that. And once I feel good about it, it literally doesn't touch me, and I can freely give empathy to that person if they deserve.
Yeah, it's true. But that needs a huge shift in perspective. And it was actually also for you a lot of hard work. So it's not coming like
it's many years.
It's a long journey of realizations and a lot of looking into the mirror to get to that level.
But how did I do that? With alone time.
Yeah, you really need, everybody needs that, really.
Yeah.
Everybody needs that. I'm not saying that in a good relationship you cannot do that, because then you have all the freedom you want basically as well. And you can self-reflect on yourself also. But being really in your own company and just focusing on your inner journey, basically, it's a different way and a different feeling.
Yeah. But also I have to emphasize that alone time means what you just described, focusing on your inner journey, because a lot of people, they are alone. They even say they don't like to go out and meet people. But what do? They watch films or listen to films all the time, or something else, or playing games or working or something. They are always focusing on something else externally, because as soon as they don't, it feels very uncomfortable, because all those shameful thoughts and feelings, they can't even definitely identify what it is, but it starts to resurface. And I did this myself as well. And in the past 1 year, I noticed that I would put on some films on Netflix or whatever to listen to. And at the time, I was really craving to learn more about myself. And I felt like I'm wasting my time. I felt like I'm distracting myself. And I felt like I have to actually be in silence to feel that uncomfortable feeling, even if it makes me shake and cry and so on, because I finally arrived to that. But I did recognize that for many, many years, the reason why I was playing games nonstop over the weekend or watching movies. And I'm not saying it's always unhealthy. That was my way of coping with my own trauma and feelings and avoidance, is that to constantly have some kind of noise that can distract you from feeling alone, feeling your feelings and so on. So it's very important to just feel it when it comes and acknowledge it and don't push it away.
Because they are also not talking about if somebody is like to watch movies, so they are watching a movie at night, or they are sitting in front of the computer to play their favorite game. It's not about never doing anything. It's more about making time for self-reflecting.
Yeah, I was even recommended, I don't remember if it was ChatGPT or an actual counselor, that if you feel this is overwhelming, you can schedule time for me time when it's like 1 hour a day or a certain time every week when you just focus on that. And you don't have to do that every single day or every single time. You like gradually you implement it in your life. So you give it some space and eventually you will start to feel comfortable. So it's not about entirely giving it up. Like that was my choice. That's how I felt I needed to do. But that's also fun to know that you can do that. Worry time, they called it. Schedule some worry time. And I'm like, how do I do that? It's always there. Yeah.
We can find time for whatever we want, actually.
Yeah.
It's all about priorities.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting out of victim mode.
Yeah, that's the other thing. So I think we can wrap it up. At the end, we adventure to a little bit different topic, but I guess we always do that. So
I think they kind of connect.
Nevertheless, it's connecting always, so it's fine. But we would like to hear what you think about this topic.
Yeah.
Or what are your experiences? Where are you in your life at this moment? And how do you feel about it? You really can be honest here, just like we were. No judgment.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening.
Yes, and please share with anyone you think they would have any questions or appreciate, and follow us as well. And see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. 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 Bye.